Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Mega Group. My name is Linda Sylvester, and I will be your host. Our group today is scheduled from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Before we begin, let's go over some information about this webinar. This orientation group will operate in webinar format. Attendees will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during Mega Groups. You are counted in attendance as soon as you logged in. You do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you lose connection, try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible. You will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar. All right, everyone, let's begin. We have a very exciting group ahead of us. Before we get into all that, let's go over today's goals. You will learn more about TAP and re-meet your facilitators. You will learn about the program you were in and how you will be paid. You will learn how to access additional information about the incentivized program. And you will meet an industry professional and have the opportunity to ask them questions. The Animation Project, aka TAP, is a non-therapeutic workforce development program. TAP's levels of programming. So we have an Animation 101 group. We have our incentivized animation groups. We have our Borough Storytelling series, our intensive training internship, and our TAP Studio group. And now it's time for me to introduce my partner for our mega groups, Lisa Clementi.
Hi, Lyndon. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here with you all. And I'm going to lead us through our opening ritual here. So for our opening today, we want to know what is something you are excited about from being part of the Creative Engagement Workshop. So in the link now, in the chat, you're going to see a link now where you're going to click on that. It's going to take you to another site, and you're going to have the ability to answer this question in a poll. And we're going to see this happen in real time. So you can go ahead and click on that link now. And we're super excited and there'll be some choices to choose from, but super excited to see what is something that you are super excited about from being part of our Creative Engagement Workshop. As we start off this week, our first week in small groups here. So, ooh, wow. Linda. Super excited here to see what's coming in hot. What do you see there, Lyndon?
Well, I see that animation and knowledge is at the top right now with 56.
Oh, yes, it is. It's growing. Yeah, we have some options here. Excitement. So definitely a lot of excitement around animation knowledge. Also coming in next, I think, is networking opportunities. What is next there, Lyndon? It's hard to see.
We have storytelling.
Oh yeah. Lots of stories to be told in our time together. Some other options looks like it's coming in kind of side by side, sharing your ideas. Yeah, we're going to get super creative in our time together, teamwork. So definitely going to be a lot of collaboration. And of course, there's always an other category because there's so much other stuff to be excited about, right, Lyndon?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, wow. Okay, but I think we can agree that animation knowledge is something that a lot of folks are really excited to gain from being part of our Creative Engagement Workshop.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for participating in our opening ritual today. All right, so we're gonna dive into some program logistics. All right, here we go. So again, welcome everyone. You are in program 2. So this is running from May 3rd to July 1st, 2021. And your small group assignments were emailed to you by April 9th. And your small group will meet for 1 hour on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday between the hours of 9:30 and 6 p.m., which we already started meeting some amazing folks this week so far. So if you are in need to change of your small group assigned day and time, email us. We will do our best to accommodate your request, but just know that the deadline to request changing your small group is this Friday, May 7th. We cannot guarantee accommodations on requests made after this time, after May 7th. And please note that the Wednesday mega group time cannot be changed. All right, so our program consists of meeting in a small group once a week and coming to our mega groups once a week. So for our small groups, you will have been assigned a day and a time to come to your small group. And this is going to be a regular Zoom session where cameras and chats are enabled should you feel comfortable coming on camera. And our focus will be about storytelling, creative engagement, and connection. And there'll be approximately about 28 people per group, and attendance will be taken at the beginning of our group.
And next we have mega groups. So mega groups will run on Wednesdays from 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. It will be in a webinar format, so cameras in the chat will not be enabled. The focus is that we'll have an industry guest speaker. We'll have approximately 600 people per webinar, and your attendance will be taken automatically when you log in. All right, now it's time to introduce our creative engagement workshop facilitators. So, first up, we have Nala Turner, a lead art therapist and clinical program associate. Next up, we have Amanda Hernandez, a lead group animator and tap studio animator. Then we have Elisa Clemente, a lead dance movement therapist. Next up, we have Gabby Rios, a lead group animator and tap studio animator. And then we have Sarah Reed, a drama therapy intern. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that we'll go over some incentive information in just a moment.
Yeah, let's go into that right now, Lyndon. So,
how will I pay? The program offers 18 group sessions, 2 sessions per week over 9 weeks. Payment is based on your attendance. You will receive $27.78 for each session you attend, for a total of $500.04 if you attend all 18 sessions.
Thanks, Lyndon. And how do I get my incentive card? Well, you will receive your incentive card in the mail by May 26th. The return address on the envelope will read the animation project. When you receive the card, it will not have any funds on it. Keep your card in a safe place. And it's important to note that the TAP team will give you a 4-digit PIN to activate your card via telephone. If you activate your card online, then you do not need that code. And incentive cards are the only way to receive payment for this program. We do not offer alternative payment methods.
When will I be paid? You will be paid for the groups you attended on the following dates: Wednesday, May 26th, Wednesday, June 16th, and Wednesday, July 7th.
So what can I use my incentive card to buy? Well, your card may be used for purchasing goods and services at any merchant that accepts Visa. You may also withdraw funds at an ATM, but a $1.50 surcharge per withdrawal will come out, or via a PIN cashback at merchants that permit these types of transactions, but there will be a 50-cent surcharge per withdrawal. Merchants and ATMs may charge their own fees and set their own limits associated with cash withdrawal transactions. Please be sure to check, as we cannot reimburse your merchant or cash withdrawal fees.
What if I miss the session? You will have the opportunity to make up the session. Instructions for making up the session are posted on the TAP website. You can check out the link, and payment for missed sessions will be added to your incentive card on the final pay date only, which will be Wednesday, July 7th.
All right, so what happens if you missed orientation last week, or you missed a group, or you have more incentive questions? Our best resource is our website, www.theanimationproject.org. And there you will see we have an FAQ page set up with a list of answers to hopefully all of your questions and needs. And right now in the chat, we're sharing the link to the FAQ page. All right, and who to contact. So again, if there's any questions surrounding incentives, you would reach out to incentives@theanimationproject.org. And if you have any scheduling or attendance questions, or need to make up a session, you would reach out to program2@theanimationproject.org.
All righty. It's time to get into our guest speaker segment. So it's time for me to introduce Kat Goloski, TAP's Industry Outreach Advisor.
Hello there, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and to share the Zoom room space with you this afternoon. I am honored to introduce the lovely Carly Zavala, a fellow Venezuelan and an incredibly talented freelance photographer. She's based here in Brooklyn, quite close by to me, in fact. As I said, she's Venezuelan born. She's worked as a nurse for over 15 years, where she developed a keen sense of reading people and ensuring that they were put at ease throughout her photography. And I'm really excited to share this space with her and the rest of you as we talk through her career. So welcome, Carly. So it's such a pleasure to have you here. If you don't mind, I'd love to start off by having you share your story within this space, within this Zoom room. Oh, and I think you're muted for the moment.
Oh, sorry. There we are. So yeah, like you said, I'm originally from Venezuela. I moved to the States in '96, and my mom was going to Cornell at that time. She was getting her PhD, and so we stayed in the States until then. And I went to college to be a nurse. And so I studied that and have been a nurse for 15 years. And I had been doing photography since I started nursing school. So technically I've been doing it for about 15 years now, but more seriously within the last few years. At one point, I kind of realized that photography was ultimately my passion and really what I wanted to do. And nursing was a profession that gave me a lot, but also was very draining for me. And I knew that when I did photography, it was something that made me feel very excited and alive in a sense. And so not last year, I keep thinking last year as in 2019, last year kind of doesn't count, but end of 20.
Very well said.
Yeah. End of 2019. Yeah, I know, it was crazy. End of 2019, I decided to leave nursing altogether to pursue photography full time.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me because you have a beautiful portfolio, and I'm quite excited for you to be able to talk us through some of your more recent projects. I'm quite conscious that, and you've also reflected this in your About section, that a lot of your photography tends to reflect a lot of light and shadow, which speaks to a specific type of mood. Could you kindly expand upon that a little bit within this space?
Yeah. So when I photograph, the biggest thing that I'm always paying attention to is the light. Even when I'm not photographing, it's always something that I'm paying attention to. So if I'm like walking down the street and I see like the light hitting a building, it just always draws my attention. Or I always notice how the light reflects off of a building or off of anything onto someone. And I'm always just so drawn to that. And I find it for some reason so fascinating to me how the light can just completely change everything, or even lack of light, a combination of that. Like, so you have shadows mixed into like the work that I do as well. So I really appreciate how I can manipulate light to create a specific mood in an image. And I tend to go towards kind of dark, moodier images. And I feel like, to me, there's just so much that you can get from an image like that versus an image that is like fully, you can see everything. There's just more room for you to try to figure out or explore what's within the image when there is kind of things that are hidden and things that are showing.
Very nicely said. Thank you. I'm conscious that I'd love to be able to have you share some of your some pieces and projects that really speak to you, if you'd like to talk us through some of your work. So if you'd like to perhaps put within the space, because I know our wonderful participants are really eager to see what you've been working on and how you got into this exciting industry. Adding to this, I'm starting to see some incredible questions populated throughout the Q&A. So I want to encourage our wonderful participants, while you pull up and share your screen with us, Carly, to reach out with additional questions, because I'm going to address them quite soon. So kindly watch this space. Oh, wonderful. Okay.
So this is my my desktop, but this is a photograph I took of some horses when I went to go visit my mother in Canada.
Absolutely. But, where in Canada was this taken?
Yeah. Where in Canada? My mom lives out near Alberta. She lives in this very tiny town called Oyen. I mean, it's small in that it's a small town, but it's like massive in that there's so much land. But yeah, it was really nice. She knows the farm owner that has these horses, so we were lucky to be able to go and visit. So yes, I put together some of kind of like my favorite photos, and really just how, one, to just show how I view things and how I view light, to try to create a specific mood to my images. And so this first page here is a combination of, so first of all, both of these were done with only one of them was done with natural light. So this black and white image. So there's just a window that's in front of this woman right here. And so I think the thing to me that I try to keep within my photography is to try to keep it as simple as possible, and not to overcomplicate my process. So you can do so much with so little equipment. And when I started off, it's not like I had a studio space, or I didn't have specific, very expensive lighting or a very expensive camera. It's really just, trying to find your own style and like what you're mostly drawn to, and then just like go with that. And then eventually, like, you can add on these kind of like special things, like the special light and special cameras and lenses and all that. But kind of starting with the basics and learning from there, I think is extremely important. That kind of goes for I think a lot of things that we get involved with. So yes, this black and white image is probably one of my favorite images that I have, and mainly one because it's just a very simple image, and the lighting that is just on her face is just from a window light. But it just creates like a very moody and just like soft feel to the image, and almost like a timeless feeling to it as well. This top one is done with, or I did this with one constant light. This is when I started to get a little bit more involved with using light that was a natural light. And so the look in front of the person, that this like kind of cloudy effect that you have, or that you see here, is done with plexiglass. So I just put it in front of the person, and then like shot through it. So that's where I'm still trying to keep things simple, but then kind of adding like one element to it to kind of make it a little bit different.
They're both incredibly gorgeous images, and I appreciate you starting off by sharing those portraits with us. We're starting to get some pretty incredible feedback. It's so good and creative. This is gorgeous. Most of Keem wondering within the space, who inspired you to get into photography?
I wouldn't say that it was one person in particular. So the first and only photography class that I've ever taken, class being that like it was when I was in college, was an introduction to darkroom photography. And so when I started photographing, I started on film. And so I had a Canon film 35mm camera that I had. And that was like when I like fell in love with photography, because there's a whole process to, you know, taking a photograph on film, not being able to see it. You have to be a bit more conscious of how you're taking an image. You know, like making sure that the light is right and the person is right, or whatever you're photographing is all kind of like perfect. With digital, it's a little easier because you can take multiple shots, and then you can try to figure out what works because you can see it in real time. But with film, it's a little bit of a lengthier process. And when I took this class, I just like fell in love with being able to take a photograph and then like taking it into the darkroom to develop the film by myself, and then taking the film and then making a contact sheet, and then like going through that contact sheet and then deciding what images to print myself. And so when you're you know, taking a negative film and you're putting it into the slider for the to be able to enlarge the image onto a paper to then put it into the chemicals, and then you like just see this image kind of come up. And the whole process was like so exciting to me that I like fell in love with it then. And it was a 4-hour class that you know, it was an hour of lecture and then 3 hours of a lab, and I was like the only person that stayed the entire 4 hours. Wow. To just like take advantage of it. Yeah, it was I spent so much time in the darkroom that my professor at the end of the course just said, like, you don't even have to do the final assignment, which was like this PDF or this PowerPoint presentation where we had to do research on a photographer. And he's like, you've shown your commitment to like photography, so you don't even have to do the final assignment. So that was kind of fun because I didn't have to do that. But yeah, that's really where I started. It was the process more so than like someone in particular that got me into photography.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That was very inspiring.
Okay, so I will move on and show a few other images. So this photograph here, I actually is one of the last photo shoots that I've done, which I did this past weekend, and is now becoming like maybe one of my other favorite images. And this was done outside, so it's all with natural light. So all of these actually, all of the ones that are on this page are done with natural light. So you can see how you can get so much different emotions just by using the light to create a specific mood that you want. So you can do something that's very dramatic like this, or like this image here, or you can do something that's very like soft and painterly, like we have here with this woman who's sitting in the chair, or you can do something that's just kind of like weird and bizarre, like this last one here. This image to me is unusual, and it might not be something that some people might originally be like kind of drawn to, but to me, I find it so interesting. And I think mainly it's because it's like the clouds in the background and how the light kind of hits this person in the front, but they're out of focus. But the background is not. I'm drawn to the images that are kind of weird in that sense. But just to kind of, this is just to kind of to show just how you can just take something so simple and make it very dramatic or moody or interesting.
With that in mind, actually, Zara was asking or saying that they like the photo of the clouds on the bottom and the gray spot looks like a boat. Is it?
A boat?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a woman. So there's a woman and there's a veil over her. And if I can, maybe I can enlarge it a bit.
Oh yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Okay, move on. These are just a combination of lights, sorry, no. These are used with constant light. So this first image here, I shot this on a rooftop in Brooklyn. And so to get this effect, so I guess kind of coming back to like the keeping things simple. So once you kind of have like a basic understanding of how to do something, like for instance in photography, like basic understanding of how to take a photograph, you can from then kind of play around and get different effects. So this image here being an example is of an image that I took to try to get this like multiple, like 3-person look. It's obviously one person, but you're able to control the settings on the camera to be able to get these kind of different looks. So this is not necessarily, it's not a double exposure, but it's me leaving the aperture and the shutter at a certain speed, so that when I move the camera, it gives me like this this effect of there being like a flow of the person moving in a specific way. And then I use a couple gels, so a red and a blue light, to be able to kind of mix this kind of purple, ultimately purple light that you see. And then these other ones are also, done with a constant light, to kind of just show that there is a way to imitate sunlight, even just by using like one natural light. So again, because I try to keep things as simple as possible, I only kind of introduce like one extra element on top of like what I normally do. And so these are just kind of examples of just very simple but beautiful portraits using a single like light source that's not natural light.
They're absolutely incredible. We're getting a lot of wonderful feedback from our audience members. Anbara says, I like the one with the lights, really impressive effects. Zara says, these photos are filled with so much emotion and there is a lightheartedness to them as well.
Thank you. Okay, so these, I wanted to also include some images that I've done on film. So these black and white ones I took with a 35mm camera that I have. And so even though like I kind of moved towards more doing portrait photography, like I absolutely love photographing people. I always kind of just try to carry my camera around to be able to just capture other things that I see, like if I'm out on the street or whatever. And then these 3 sub images are in 3 different places. So this one I took when I went to the Dominican Republic a few years ago. And luckily I brought my film camera with me. And so shooting with black and white is also really nice, because sometimes I think if you have color to an image, it might distract from the image itself. So sometimes just a black and white image in itself can be like pretty powerful. And so this, again, just an example of a few film shots that I've done. This one was done in California, I think in Venice maybe. And then this bottom one I took at a flea market in Brooklyn a few years back.
Oh, they're also gorgeous. And I appreciate you sharing with us a different medium with which to express your photography. So thank you. Yeah.
And with that being said, I wanted to include also, like, if anyone is interested in photography but doesn't necessarily have a camera, I took these 2 photographs with my iPhone. So there's always, I feel like nowadays, like the devices that we have these like pretty incredible cameras that I think even if you don't have your camera with you, you can always have, we always have our phones. Like we're always like so attached to our phones that that could be like a medium that people can use to try to take photos. And I at one point started to take photographs of leaves after it rained. And so these are just 2 examples of a couple leaves that I took on separate occasions, but just to kind of show what you can do with your iPhone or with your phone. And these are just kind of like minor edits that I did to them, but to me, I find them like very just incredible that your phone is able to produce such like detailed and beautiful images as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Nyla in particular is wondering which iPhone was used for these photos. Which one in particular?
I have the 7 Plus. So it's an older model, not, you know, but I mean, I think even the newer phones have much better cameras. But I also always think about, like, it's not necessarily the equipment that you have, because if you think about, in particular with photographers, like many years ago, like nobody had the equipment that we have now, and they were still able to produce like incredible works of art with just a basic camera. So I guess what I'm trying to say with that is that you should never restrict yourself because you don't have like a particular you know, model of a product, I guess, or like you don't have the particular camera or phone or anything. Like you're always able to just, you know, take your imagination and use what you have, and then just build and create with that. Not even just in photography, but in whatever, you know, field you're trying to go to.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Carly. That's so important to recognize. Lisa was saying that she really likes how realistic the rain droplets look on the leaves. Salem has said, I'm just in awe of your work. This all looks so amazing.
Thank you.
A lot of really incredible questions. So I think I'm just going to just hop to it and bypass my own questions, just because our wonderful participants are asking so many good questions.
Sure.
Going back, I'm actually going to go back further, because I obviously talked a little bit about how you transitioned, having moved here from Venezuela. One of our viewers who was asked to be anonymous has asked, was it hard moving from Venezuela? Was there a language barrier? Did you feel you could use photography to express yourself, whether in a political format or in a just sort of being able to express your emotions, as it were?
So when I moved here, I luckily had already already knew how to speak English, because when I was younger, my mom had moved to Columbia, Missouri when I was around 3 years old, and so I learned English when I was much younger. So I didn't have that difficulty in terms of the language barrier, but definitely a difficulty in like leaving your country and like leaving your country and leaving your family and like everything that you're familiar with, and then moving to a new country and kind of starting brand new. So that was difficult in a sense, but I felt like I was able to adapt pretty quickly. And I was around 11 years old when that happened. So I didn't have the medium of format at that time. But I think if I was to, I would definitely be able to use it now. In fact, like there's a project that I'm currently working on where I'm interviewing Venezuelans and trying to get their story about how, you know, either their transitions from leaving Venezuela to a new country, or just their experience of Venezuela, and trying to incorporate doing portraits, like this thing that I absolutely love, and then also this background that I have. So photography is great to be able to do that. It kind of like merges a lot of things together. So definitely, I think something, definitely a tool that can be used for sure for anything that you're trying to kind of like express within yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. Jemima asks another really great question as well, as to, were you scared to transition from nursing, obviously from where you'd obviously had almost over 15 years worth of experience, to the world of photography? Like, how did that transition?
Oh. Yeah, that is very difficult. So yeah, if, you know, for me in particular, I've had a profession that I was in it for 15 years, and it was stability essentially for me. It, you know, provided me an income on a regular that I didn't have to worry about. But on the flip side of that, I was really like losing myself within nursing, because I gave so much to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm the type of person that, like, when I'm doing a job, I'm like 110% in it. So to kind of be functioning in in that mind frame for so long, but also feeling a little bit detached from the job itself was really hard for me. And so when I finally made the decision to leave nursing, it wasn't an easy one, because I was leaving something that was extremely familiar to me, and also stable, to something that I like absolutely love, but not necessarily have stability, and not really be sure as to like where it's going to go. But to me, like there's a huge passion that I have in photography that kind of just drives and motivates me to keep doing it. So definitely was scary, and it's still kind of like a process, and it probably will be a process that I will be in for a while, but the more that I do it, the happier that it makes me feel. And so it kind of just like continues to motivate me to keep doing it.
I appreciate your transparency and sharing your truth, sharing your story. I think that's so important to know where your values are and what motivates you. And it's very clear that when you talk about your photography, you get very excited about
it.
Erin is kind of wondering, and also Kyla is asking a very similar question as well. Your photography and portfolio, everything that you've shared with us looks so wonderful. How do you come up with ideas for your photography? Do you write things down, or do you just sort of come up with ideas on the fly? Or where do you essentially get your inspiration from?
A great question. So for me, it's a combination of things. Following photographers that I like, also looking at artwork that's not photography, to try to incorporate that within like what I'm doing. So the lighting that I like to use, it's called Rembrandt Lighting. So it's a light that Rembrandt, the painter, used to use when he would paint. To me, it's just like I find it so interesting that it just creates this like very soft and beautiful painterly look to my photographs. And so I get inspiration from paintings, other photographers that I see that I like enjoy their work. In terms of like coming up with ideas, I often it comes from a level like an intuition that I have about someone. So if I'm meeting with a person to do a portrait of them, or if I'm talking to them beforehand before doing the portrait, I sometimes will get like a feel to what they might like, or something about them kind of draws me to a specific idea. And so I kind of just run with that. And so I'm also not someone that has like a very strict idea for a photo shoot and then go from there. I like to like let it evolve, maybe have an initial idea about something and then kind of just go with it. And so for for instance, this photograph here of the woman with the curly red hair, when I saw her, my like initial feeling with her was to like make her look very painterly, and have her. I have like other photos from the session that I did with her, and so what I did with her, like the first thing that came to mind when I saw her was like I want to put her with a blank backdrop in a park, and like just have her sit on a stool and photograph her as if she was in a painting. You can't tell with this photograph in particular, but other photographs that I have of her, you can see like the greenery around her and the white backdrop. And so I just kind of I get a feel, and then I just kind of go with them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa's wondering, for those who are interested in pursuing photography and do want to expand outside of, taking photos with their phones, as I often do, what are some cameras what's a camera that you might suggest for our participants to look into and to explore for their photography?
Yeah, I would say if you are maybe interested in film photography, where you're taking, a roll of film and you're putting it into the camera. I use a Canon AE1. It's like a very basic film camera, and it's like very easy to find. It's like a really well made camera that just has like this like really good weight and feel to it. which to me I think is important also when I'm holding something. Like I want to feel like it's sturdy and that it's like it's durable. And so to me, a Canon AE1 would be like a good camera to start off, like if you're wanting to get into film. And then of course there's like so many different other brands that there are, but I would say probably maybe start with that. And in terms of digital, I shoot with Fuji, and I particularly like Fuji because it has the feel of an analog camera. And I like to be able to have to control the dials the way that I would control a film camera. And so to me, that's why I particularly like to shoot with Fuji. And aside also from the fact that it gives like these incredible colors and it's just like so rich and beautiful. So all of these were shot with Fuji cameras. So I have multiple cameras that I use, but definitely recommend Fuji just because they're just amazing to work with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Edwin's wondering, how long do most of your photos take? Or what does that process look like?
To like take a photograph?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how much time I have with someone. It could be, maybe like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. I find that for when I'm doing portraits, there's a little bit of a period of people getting comfortable sitting in front of a camera. And so I try to make sure that people feel comfortable. And then that kind of starts before they come to sit in front of the camera for me. And that's usually kind of just like talking them through the process, kind of talking them through the idea, getting them excited about this, the idea of a shoot with them, showing them examples, showing them some of the work that I've done so that people, kind of become feel a little bit more comfortable sitting in front of the camera. It's not an easy thing. Even though like I photograph, like I kind of feel uncomfortable in front of a camera. So I understand the feeling that it can make people feel. And so if I'm able to have, a good amount of time with them, usually, after 30 minutes or so being in front of the camera, then people start to relax and I can get a little bit more out of them. And then we get like these like incredible images of them. Yeah.
Taylor asks a really great question. What's your plan for getting these shoots sorted, or do you kind of sort of treat these moments as like a in the moment type situation? Like, are you out with a friend and then you decide that you want to take a photo, or do you try to schedule them out as much as possible for proper shoots?
I try to schedule them out as much as possible. Yeah. I have a couple friends or I should say I have a friend and my sister that I photograph kind of like on the spot. If I'm like with them, but the majority of the shoots that I do, it's something that I plan in advance with people. So we'll come up with an idea. I'll tell them like kind of what I'm feeling about an idea for the project, and then we set it up and then shoot it.
I'm wanted to ask you, because I'm actually not familiar with this particular software, but one of our viewers has asked, have you ever used PixArt?
I haven't. No.
Our participants are teaching us something as well.
Yeah, so to edit my images, I use Capture One. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but it's very similar to Photoshop. I think a lot of people know of Photoshop. And so with Photoshop, you're able to kind of manipulate an image a lot more than what you could with Lightroom or any other editing software. But Capture One is almost a mix of Lightroom and Photoshop. So you're still able to kind of manipulate the image the way that you could in Photoshop. And it's a software that kind of takes a little time, like with anything, to learn it. But I think once I figured it out, it felt so much easier for me to use and like more intuitive than any other software that I've used for editing.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I need to look up PixArt, so thank you for also putting that on my radar. This is a really good question as well, and I'm curious about the answer to that myself. One of our viewers asked, with hindsight now, would you have started your photography career earlier instead of pursuing a role as a nurse?
I think I would have. Yes, it's a tricky question, only that the answer being yes, but I also know that I'm where I'm at because of the experience that I've had. So I think had I not had the experience up to this point, then maybe the way that I view things might not be the same. And so the answer being yes, I would definitely start my photography career much earlier if I could have. But I'm also kind of I am grateful for the experience that I did get, because I know that it contributed to how I see and how I handle things at this point.
Mm-hmm. Very nicely said. I'm kind of curious because I'm such a fan of your photography, as you know, and I tell you this all the time. And I always like to creep up onto your website as well, which I'm sure you've noticed that as well. I'm kind of curious from my own perspective. Do you have a preference towards portraits or towards taking landscapes? And I wonder if so, I'd love to hear your reasoning behind either.
Portraits for sure. I'm more drawn to people
that shows
than landscape, mainly because I feel as humans we're just so complex, and there's just so much that a single image of someone can tell you. And I love being able to capture people's like true essence, and then have them, like, when they look at the image, be like, that's me, that's what I am. And usually, you know, the feedback that I get after I do a shoot and I share it with people, it's just like, wow, I see myself in that image. And I want people, I want to get that out of people, and have people feel like so good about themselves. And so I think that's why I'm so drawn to mainly photographing people. And it could also be just because I was a nurse for 15 years, and I was in it because I enjoyed taking care of people. And so this, in a way, is me taking care of people in a way that isn't fully consuming myself, but also like giving me joy and pleasure out of it.
And it definitely shows.
But I do like to take landscape. I mean, I'll show you the rest of these are from like trips that I've done. And so they're not portraits of people, but they're more of just either landscape or just random things that I've seen on trips that I've been. And so these are all like kind of very similar, but just this is how I view the world. It's just like in pictures. So whenever I see something, I'm just like, that's an image, that's photograph. And the colors and the light and the mood and everything about it is just like so intriguing to me. So even though they're not portraits, I can still see like this is my style, and this is my light. This is what I like to look at.
Mm-hmm. I'm conscious that the lower right hand image is obviously New York, but where were these other images taken?
Yeah, this one was taken in Canada, same at that horse ranch. That was on my desktop, and then these two were taken in the Dominican Republic.
Gosh, so gorgeous! And it's sort of like the color palettes are pretty insane, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we're obviously, we have a lot of budding photographers within this space, and I'd love to sort of get your advice on, what are some skills that some of our wonderful participants who want to pursue photography might need in order to sort of explore that route. You obviously suggested, referencing an iPhone to take photos, and obviously having fun with taking landscapes or profile photos that way, or portraits rather that way. But what are some other skills that our participants might welcome to help support them into their careers as photographers? I made that very wordy, but you get the point.
Yeah. I think, again, just knowing the basics of photography. So knowing what aperture is and shutter is and ISO, and just like focusing on understanding the basics of it first. And then once you have the understanding of like how to basically take, you know, a well-composed image, or, you know, it's been lit properly and all the exposures and everything is fine. Then you can start like playing with different aspects of it. So just starting from the basics, because I think it's difficult to start with something that's like difficult without having like a base or foundation to just know the basics of anything. And in photography, just like the basics of how to use a camera. Because once you have that, then you can go wherever from there.
Mm-hmm. Very nicely said. Do you have any suggestions on free softwares that one might access in order to develop their skills as a photographer, or any sort of tutorials that you felt that you benefited from?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of tutorials on YouTube, and YouTube is amazing for that, because there's so many good photographers out there, but then there's also some content that's not necessarily so great. But YouTube for sure is like a really good place to start in terms of like trying to find free content. You know, like basics of what's aperture, what is the shutter speed, Instagram, is being that it's social media, it's a little tricky just because it's social media and you can easily get caught up in it. But there are a lot of people that you can meet on social media that are photographers that you can reach out to, and try to talk about work, and like try to figure out, you know, what your style is. Like maybe, you know, go online and find images and try to figure out like, why am I drawn to this image over this other one? And then you can start to then develop your own style. You can then figure out like, maybe I like to street photography, or I'd like to do portraits, or I would like to do still life, or there's just so many different avenues within photography. So I think like, one, knowing the basics, and then two, trying to figure out like what you are personally drawn to, like what makes you happy, like what is something that you look at and that you enjoy, and then try to break it down and try to figure out like why that particular image is like calling to you, I guess, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Justin is wondering, do you ever aim for a specific message or a general idea for your photographs? You know, do you have like specific themes that you particularly enjoy working with?
I don't think I do. I think it's more of like what I find appealing to myself, and I try not to do photography that I think other people would like, and by that I mean like I don't want to photograph something that I know is going to get like so many likes per se, or is going to get like so much attention. It's like I want to continue on this path of like what looks great to me personally, and then I feel like that's like ultimately like where my vision comes. But in terms of like a theme, I guess my lighting, the way that I light things, I like very dramatic and moody images. So I kind of have that a lot in my work. So even with these ones here, like you can tell that there's just so much drama to them, but it's a landscape. There's not a person in them, but you can tell like how dramatic it is by the clouds, or by like how I didn't expose you know so much light to this one, like a storm's coming in. Yeah, so I would say my theme is always kind of dark and moody.
I love that. You know, you're obviously freelancing at the moment as a photographer. You've certainly are evolving your career in that context. What is your dream role? What is your ideal next step for your career? You know, you've obviously been expanding your portfolio almost exponentially within the past few months alone, I've noticed personally. But what are the next stages for your own career that you're really excited about, or what would be your ideal world to explore?
My ideal, I would love to shoot for magazines and publications. So you know, someone being interviewed and they need a portrait of them. Like I would love to be like called in to do that. Would love to do travel assignments too, where I could go somewhere and photograph people in different countries or, you know, different states, just wherever. But ultimately always to how I view it. So I want to be hired for the work that I do and how I see things. That would be like my ideal, is to say like, oh, we're going to contact Carly because she sees things in this way and we want her to photograph this person or this situation based on that.
Mm-hmm. I do have a couple more questions for you that our wonderful participants have been asking. So I hope you don't mind that I'm going to
no, totally
share them with you. I do want to acknowledge for our group that we did essentially start a little bit earlier for our conversation between Carly and myself. So we might end this conversation a little bit earlier than anticipated. So I just wanted to give everyone the heads up on that side of things. But what I did sort of want to get are a couple of questions that sort of crept through just off the back of some of the things that you've just recently said. And Naomi in particular is wondering, what is your favorite emotion to capture on camera? That's a great question.
I enjoy capturing just a very calm and just quiet presence. And so I think a lot of my images have that kind of like feel to it. So I don't tend to go for very smiley images. I kind of just like a very still image that just to me speaks, like if I look at it, I get kind of lost into their expression and just wonder like what they're thinking or like what's going on behind the scenes. I think when you put an image where someone's like very smiley and happy, like it's nice, but to me, I kind of know what's going on. Like they're happy for some reason. But to the opposite of that, I like to kind of view an image and like wonder what they're thinking about, or like what's going on in their mind, or what's going on around them that they're looking that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dion and one of our other participants are asking some other really great questions, and that's along the lines of, you know, how many pictures does it take until you get the perfect picture? Or how do you know a photo itself or something that you're taking a photo of looks just right?
That is a very good question as well. So if I'm doing a photo shoot and I have a particular idea of like how I want the image to look, I might shoot it a few times. With digital, it's so much easier because you could just take like, I don't know, 20 pictures at once, and then you can kind of try to figure out, you know, which one you like the best. But I think it gets a little tricky with digital, and I try not to shoot that much because you can get lost in the process, right? So because you have this device that you're able to just immediately see the image, it kind of takes away from you trying to figure out what it is that you truly want. So being able to kind of slow down the process and to maybe do a few takes and then look at what you're photographing and then say like, okay, I need to adjust, you know, the chin this way or the shoulders or this and that. So just like shooting a few at a time until you kind of get to the point where you feel comfortable with the image. And then to me, when I know that the image is right, it's usually that I get like this very excited feeling of like, this is it. This is the image.
You feel that
yeah.
genuine emotional connection to it.
It's like, oh my God, this one. That's it. Moving on. Yeah.
So, you know, I felt very special because you're obviously a dear friend, and I've really appreciated the fact that we can also have this conversation with so many of our wonderful engaged participants who are asking some incredible questions, as I keep highlighting, because I really love how everyone's been participating. Wanted to sort of see from your end, you know, one last question on my part, which is that of, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice or suggestions for our participants who want to pursue the world of photography? I obviously asked you a bit more to the point of skills, but kind of wanted to get a sense from your perspective. You know, what are some other suggestions or areas of recommendation for our participants who want to pursue a role, whether it's a freelance or full-time opportunity as a photographer with you all?
Yeah. I would say that you kind of just have to keep pushing it and believe in yourself, believe in the work that you do, and to always just continue to like push your craft. So I'm like constantly evolving in how I photograph things. And I think the most important thing to try to figure out, one is like what you're drawn to, what your style is, and then to always kind of like push your boundary, you know, like, okay, if you normally take a photograph in a certain way, then like, how about like changing the angle, or, you know, instead of shooting someone portrait wise, shoot them landscape, and trying to kind of push past your limits and not always stay like in that comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something for me that I've been trying to do a lot lately, is to not necessarily always photograph in the same manner that I do, but like, what can I do different so that this image can stand out more? And it might not be, you know, you might not get it in that whatever shoot that you're doing, but you have to just continuously keep photographing and just, you know, come up with different ideas and just keep shooting, get friends, family members, photograph them. I've contacted a lot of people on Instagram, you know, like, hey, would you be interested in me photographing you? At first it was a little hard just because people didn't really know, but now that I'm like putting out content, people will see the images and say, yeah, definitely, like, please photograph me. And so then eventually, like, it starts to kind of build and you feel a little bit more confident in what you're doing. But I would say for sure, just like figuring out what it is that you're drawn to and stick with that, and like pushing your own boundaries and your limits on things, because there's always like, there will always be new work that you will put out. And I feel that about myself. It's sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a different image, but every time I do a photo shoot, it's totally different than anything else that I've done. So just, you know, honoring that within yourself, that you're able to create, because we are like, we're humans and we love to create, and we've done so much in the world, right? Like things, there's so much inspiration in everything in our everyday life, that you just can, it's there. Whatever you have, you know, it's like within you, and you just need to trust it and move with it.
Those are some thoughtful and really inspiring words to sort of close out our time together. So thank you so much, Carly. I really appreciate your wisdom and your inspiration and everything that you've brought to this wonderful space this afternoon. So thank you for taking the time, and we genuinely hope to stay in touch with you and have you back with us here at the Animation Project. It's been a genuine pleasure.
Thank you so much. I can also give my Instagram and my website. I don't know where I can type that, but
yeah, absolutely. We can share that within the chat here, actually, and our colleagues at the Animation Project can share that with as well.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you so much, Carly. It was genuine.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of
Thanks, everyone.
And I will now pass the baton over, as I like to say, every week to the likes of both Lisa and Lyndon. So thank you so much once again, everyone, and we'll see you all next week.
Amazing.
I know, right, Lyndon? Thank you so much, Carly. Wow, for sharing your experiences. Your work is stunning, and definitely leaving us with those really strong words of wisdom of just believing in your work and pushing your boundaries. Amazing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carly.
So Lyndon, we are ending a little bit early, but no worries, right? Everybody is still going to receive their incentive. So just letting everybody know that we are going to be ending maybe about 15, 20 minutes early. But again, please know you will receive your incentive for today. But before we, as part of our closing, we have a closing ritual, right, Lyndon?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So wherever you all are at home in your places and spaces, we're going to invite you to create a gesture or a movement that represents how you are feeling about this experience so far. So you'll have Lyndon and I to model. You're going to see us create our gesture and movement, but wherever you are in your place and space, you're going to do that along with us. So I don't know, Lyndon, should we get a 3, 2, 1 and we'll go?
Yeah, we should 3, 2, 1.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Yay! Oh, so awesome to move here with you, Lyndon. This is my gesture. You probably can't see all my hands.
I can, yeah.
Got yours
This is
here
why.
too, Lyndon.
Pretty good. Doing pretty good.
So awesome, everyone. You could shake out your gesture, your movement. Mine is definitely representing how excited I am feeling thus far.
Same here. Well, everyone, it looks like we've come to the end of today's mega group. As always, please remember to stay connected with us through our website as well as our social media. And again, thank you for joining the Made in New York Animation Project mega group.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you in our small groups. Until next time.
And bye.